Hey everybody, welcome to Flip Your Life, where we talk about how investing in real estate is a way not only to make money, but to transform your entire lifestyle. I'm your host, Michael Haberman. Now, as I hope you know, on this podcast, we typically talk to investors who have gotten control of their life through real estate and are living the life they want to live. For the past couple of episodes, we switched gears and we spoke with some experts who help investors. We spoke with Giselle Rosado, an attorney who specializes in helping investors, and we spoke with John Copulis, an appraiser who does work for many private lenders. They had really great advice, and I hope you'll take a listen if you haven't already. But today, we're returning to speaking with local investors who have taken control of their lives through real estate. And today, I'm really excited to have a great guest, Nick Martucci. Now, Nick does it all. He wholesales, he flips, and he holds rentals. But more importantly, Nick knows how to live. He's making the most of the independence he's created through real estate. So, Nick, welcome, and let's dive in.
Thanks for having me, Michael. I'm happy to be here. I love jumping on a podcast and explaining a little bit more about what I do. I think because we do this, every day, we forget how cool it is sometimes. I've been in real estate now for about 5 years. I do a mix of wholesaling, flips, and rentals. Right now I'm holding 35 units as far as rentals. We're on track to do about 40 deals this year, which will be a mix, mainly flips. So I'd say 85% flips, and then a few wholesales, and a couple buy and holds this year. Just trying to keep my sanity, have the family. I have a toddler, he's 3, and I have a newborn who's 3 months. So to tie into the lifestyle as well, it's awesome. You make your own schedule, and it never feels like you're working. So I guess I'll start that for the intro.
Yeah, no, that's great. Wait, so say those numbers again. You have 35 rentals.
I have 35 rental units, yes, comprised of mostly 2 to 3 families, but one bigger 15 unit.
Okay.
So the goal moving forward would be to add some more of these bigger apartment buildings and stuff like that moving forward.
Okay. And then how many transactions are you going to do this year, do you think?
I'm on track to do about 40 between flips, wholesales, novations, and rentals.
So that's a lot in 5 years. So let's dive in a little bit there, right? Like you're like, oh, in 5 years, that's what I've done, but that's a lot. I think often, and this is one of the things I like to focus on with my guests is, oh, I want to get into real estate because it's passive, right? Or I'm going to wholesale because you don't have to have a lot of money. Tell us a little bit about the journey and how you got to, what did it look like 5 years ago? And what do you think were like the keys of how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I think I have a typical story, perhaps in the wholesaling world. I would say I started with wholesaling. I worked for a company. I kind of learned how to do it for a few months. Started my own business, started that way. Didn't have much money. Figured out the deal side of things, how to get a deal to closing, all that good stuff. So I would say the first 3 years or so, I was doing about a deal a month, mainly wholesales. By year 3, I would say, which would be 2024, I started pushing a little closer towards flipping because, like everyone else, I think you're wholesaling and, you can make some good spreads on the wholesales, but you're selling it to someone else that's going to make money. So I'm always like, hey, I want to juice every dollar out of the deal that I can. So I started flipping, which is definitely not as easy as you'd think it is. It seems easy, but it's not. At first I had brought on a partner. We had started a construction company because I figured, it's too hard to bring in a GC and still make money on a flip, which is true depending who your GC is. But I tried that. I was a little too focused on the construction end, and I let go of the acquisitions end, which is, the bread and butter of this business. So I stopped the construction company. I got back on track with acquisitions and the deal sourcing end of things. And then I would say a big help in my journey was someone we both know, Greg Helbeck had showed me a couple. I had brought him a few deals.
Greg's been on the show.
Yeah, Greg's a good dude. He's a close friend of mine now too. And I brought him a few deals, and I was like, "Hey, how do we flip these?" And he brought me the wholesale model, and I kind of took that and ran with it.
So
So,
explain that. What's that model?
right. So for anyone listening that doesn't know, don't make your flips too nice. You're not in it to really make the best house. You're in it to turn a profit. And it doesn't mean that you can't, you know, do both. Like you don't want to, give a terrible house to someone, but you also don't want to overdo it and lose money because there is a lot of risk in this business, which is another lesson that I've learned. So the wholesale model is going in and kind of seeing what you could get away with. If there's a kitchen or a bathroom that's dated but it's livable, sometimes it makes sense not to do that. Sometimes we're going to go in, fresh coat of paint, put down some LVP floors, maybe update some electrical, and then relist. And instead of, going for the top of the market, we're going to aim for the bottom of the market, and it's probably going to sell faster, and you're going to spend less money on renovations, and it's a lot easier of a flip from that perspective.
So that brings up two questions for me. So one, I think, would you agree it's also know your market, right? So I'm in I'll just make it up, $400,000 to $600,000 market. That's what my contractors are good at. That's the quality of work I do. Oh, I see a 1.5 or a $2 million house. There's a lot of profit in there, but your normal team, your normal model might not work for that $2 million house as it might for that $400,000 to $600,000 house. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree. It's a whole different ball game because when I did my first, I would say two big flips, it was same thing. It was kind of out of my buy box. It was more expensive houses. This was Cold Spring and Rhinebeck, big renovations. But we didn't know what we were doing. And it's like you wanna get a great product because you figure in those markets, all right, I need to do top of the line, but then you're spending top of the line. So yeah, you have to know your market from a monetary standpoint, but also a geographical standpoint, because that's another lesson that I learned through this massive scale that I've done this past year is like the market's still hot in a lot of places, but it's also not hot in a lot of places, specifically rural areas. So I've taken too many rural houses where you can't find a good comp. You think the area looks good, but you don't know for sure, and you're taking a gamble. And this business is not good to take gambles. So
Oh, that's interesting that you bring it up because on my other side, right, as a lender, we're often we Rock East, as you know, will go into areas that's a lot of places won't because we know they're not really rural. But when some place is really rural, and sometimes people say, "Oh, what are you worried about? It's going to be fine." But it's not so dumb for lenders to be wary of rural. I hear you saying.
no, completely agree. And once again, having experienced it makes you that much smarter and better moving forward. Like I would say, even from the beginning, I mean, I learned this, from a good wholesaling company, I would say. So from the beginning, I've never lost on a deal. I was always, I feel like, getting severely like discounted properties until once again, this was late last year when I really started my scale and I'm like, you can't lose money. I'll buy this. I'll buy this. I'll buy this. And then, I got hurt on a couple of them. So I learned my lesson that way. It's
That,
not
that,
all,
that's how you learn
sunshine and
though.
rainbows. Yes.
That's how you learn though, right? My brother always says, my brother who's my partner always says, the guy who's been in real estate for 20 years and says he's never lost is the same guy who tells you he goes to Vegas and he never loses, right? Like
Right.
it just
Right.
doesn't happen. You're in it long enough, you do enough deals, you're gonna have some losses. But
Yes.
the other thing that you bring up, so you were pretty quickly, you say doing one deal per month, right? And how do you do that? Because not to lead you to the answer, but it takes, right? You're not looking on the MLS, right? Like it takes money. Explain a little bit. And if you're trying to do a lot of volume and wholesaling, what goes on behind the scenes to make that happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two different ways to go about it. I know depending who you're following and who you're looking at online, there are some people that do, go on market and make a bunch of offers and see what sticks. When I learned wholesaling, it was always off market. I don't think I've ever bought something on market. So to get my deals from the beginning, and it's annoying because it's ever changing. What works today probably isn't going to work in 6 months. So you always have to be pivoting, but it's anywhere from SMS blasting, cold calling, direct mail, Google Ads, SEO, which is search engine optimization on Google. Trying to see what works in what area and at what time. Like I know, for instance, Google Ads had worked for me from 2023 through 2025, consistently pretty much gave me a deal a month. And then it started fizzling out. I think there's a lot of competition that added to it. There's a lot of nationwide guys that are, now getting deals cheaper because they're marketing everywhere. So now you're competing, you are competing with these nationwide guys that sometimes will overpromise and underdeliver because they don't care. They don't have a local presence. So yeah, just I would say, I guess a little bit of everything as far as the marketing goes.
But it takes some money to do that, right?
Yes, yes. So from a marketing standpoint, the Google ads was always most expensive, but what was nice with the Google ads is you get someone that like just searched, "Hey, I need to sell my house right now." And they call you and they're hot, they're ready to sell. Cold calling, SMS, a little bit cheaper, but you're going to have a lot of follow-up. So it's very important that you have a CRM and you have a proper follow-up protocol because these leads might not be hot this second, but in 6 months, a year, 2 years, these leads start to convert. So, and I always say too, in the beginning, if you're just starting out and you want to jump into it, I always suggest go online, go to batch leads, any of these bigger what else is there? Any of those batch leads type of CRMs or anything like that. Pull a list and just start calling because that you either have, you could spend your time or you could spend your money. In the beginning, you have no money. You got to spend your time. Once you build up a little bit of a bankroll, which is what I did, I moved into the PPC. So now I'm like, all right, I'll put my money instead of my time there, and then that'll allow me to, take my time and allocate it towards somewhere else in the business or on the business.
Yeah, there's I think I just always I always hate when like you go to like a real estate meetup and someone comes in and says, "Oh, I'm going to start wholesaling," and you say, "Oh, okay, why are you doing that instead of flipping?" "Well, I don't have any money." And it's like, listen, like, good luck. I mean, there's ways to do it, right? We know some people who go and knock on doors, so it's either going to be time or money. But it's the myth of real estate's just the way to sit back and collect cash as it rolls in is just, I always love hearing from people like you who have been through it to remind people that's not how it works, at least not in the beginning.
Yeah, you know what? And that's a good point, Mike, because people don't want to put in the work. Like I've had also a lot of people that come to me once I've started posting on social, which I'm still not really too good with, and I want to get into a little bit more. I feel like I'm always just working in the business, but I know that's an important part of it. But people are like, "Oh, that's so sick. You do real estate. I want to do it." But they're not willing to actually put in the work when you're like, all right, if you want to do it, you need to be able to call every day for the next 6 months to a year. And like, don't give up in 2 weeks or a month or 2 months when you haven't gotten a deal and then say this doesn't work. It's like, that's how we all had to get started. So it's like, if you're not willing to go through that in the beginning, then, you don't want it bad enough. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's it kind of could be if you get lucky because you never know. You could start calling and get a deal in 2 weeks. It's not like it's impossible, but like when you set your expectations like that, that's when I think you fail.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good advice. So let me ask one other question about this. So you have rentals, you have flips, and wholesales. How do you decide? Like, people ask a lot. Like they see a property. Do you decide? Do you know going in what it's going to be, or how do you make that decision what you want to do with that property?
So that's a good question. I would say it depends where you're at in your business. So if you're in the beginning, right, and you don't have the money to do a flip, you don't have the credentials to get hard money, you might have to start with wholesaling. If you have the option to flip, so like if coming from my perspective, I guess getting back to your question, if you asked me the same question 6 to 8 months ago, I would say I don't wholesale anything and I flip everything. now coming to it is, which is what most of like the experienced wholesalers slash flippers do. And I won't call them wholesalers, I'll call them people that market, off market, I guess, is you take the good ones and you wholesale off the bad ones. So even if you're only going to make 10,000 or 5,000 on a wholesale, but the risk is too much to flip it, you'd rather do that than tie up your money for 6 months and then lose 15 or 20,000 in 6 months. So you got to know what's worth it to roll the dice on. Because then there's other situations too. Like I had a property, this was probably a couple of years ago. I could only assign it for it was a $30,000 fee only, but I felt like there was more value to it. I ended up flipping it and it was $180,000 profit. So that comes into my head sometimes. And then I have the other ones where I'm like, hey, I could have wholesaled this and made 10 or 20K up front, and now I'm sitting on it and I'm going to break even or whatever the situation is. So I guess to further clarify on that, like know your ARV, be like, as sure as you can about your numbers and flip those. When it's questionable and you have that weird feeling inside of you, just see if you could wholesale it off.
And then how do you decide about rentals? Did
So
you just decide you wanted to like do long-term wealth building, or did like a property not sell and you decided to keep it and you liked it, or how did that happen?
So the way I always looked at rentals is like if I could be into it for no money, that's like that's my MO. So if you could burr it and have nothing out of your pocket, or maybe 10,000, 15,000 out of pocket, then just keep it. Specifically if they're 2 or 3 family more than single family. Like I had my first rental was actually what you had mentioned, that I went to, was my first property ever that I bought. I went to flip it. The numbers didn't make sense to flip, or I couldn't get what I was asking, and I ended up refining it with you actually, I think back in the day. And on that deal, I ended up, I don't think I was anything out of pocket after I refied it, and it does make like $400 a month. So that one was ended up being a good one. And then yeah, anything where you see the numbers that you can go in and refi it, and you think that you could be into it for nothing, I just figure, why not do that? Mix in some long-term wealth with short-term, with your short-term gains, because it's like you're gonna do a flip, you're gonna pay taxes and everything else. When you do a refi, in a real perfect world, if you could make money on your refi, now that's tax-free debt, and now you have an asset.
Yeah. So just if people are newer and they're not sure what Nick's talking about there, what a lot of people will do is buy a property, say a 2-family, well below market price, maybe put some renovations in, they boost up the value, and now when they're refining out, they're actually getting all of the money they put in, they're getting it out, maybe even more than they put in. There might, and so that's what a lot of investors look at. It's funny hearing you talk about all these different strategies. I'm not sure if I've shared this on this podcast, but my wife and I own a couple of rentals, and everyone has a role, right? So for me, I bought all my properties from wholesales, right? Because we wanted to flip, but my wife was working full time. We realized like I have a business to run, so I didn't really have the time. Then she stopped working. Then we looked at flipping. We're like, we don't really know how to do this, right? And so then we bought rentals, and we bought it from wholesalers. And yes, we paid a little bit more, but we didn't have the time and we didn't have the knowledge, and they were still really good deals, but a wholesaler was perfect for us. So if you're looking to get into real estate, one thing to do instead of being a wholesaler, find some wholesalers, because they might have a deal that's not good enough for them, but it's still going to be a good deal for you as a new person getting in, or someone. As I always say, I'm paying a little bit, I pay a little bit more. That's the cost of having another job, or the cost of not having the knowledge. But all three those properties have still worked out great for me. So, everyone has a role.
I completely agree. And if you could find good wholesalers or good acquisition guys that you can count on, I completely agree. Because there are out there. I have some good relationships. Shout out ClearPath Home Buyers, with my friends there, where they're very good at sourcing the deals. And the same thing, they don't want to put up with the headaches of the flip. So they'll bring me some deals, and they still flip themselves, but to the volume aspect, they'll bring me deals. I'll handle getting lending, I'll handle construction and all that stuff. Because when it comes to wholesaling also, it's nice to wholesale to someone like you, Mike, but these buyers that you're dealing with typically, especially if you want to get top dollar, it's almost as bad as selling it to an end buyer. Like, if you're wholesaling and you're sending it out to a bunch of these guys, they're brutal. All the guys, we always have good stories of signing a contract and the guy goes to the house before he closes. He kicks the door in, and then the seller's looking at you like, "Hey, who's at my house? We haven't closed yet." And now you have to, come up with some crazy explanation as to why someone went in and took all their stuff. So.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, interesting. It is a journey, and it's not easy. But so I want to switch gears a little bit now. So what we like to talk about with people, as you said up front, is sort of it never feels like work. But I want to. Now you're a little different, right? Actually, Greg Helbeck, who you mentioned, is pretty good at traveling, managing his time. But a lot of the investors I talk about, they talk about the freedom, they talk about the freedom of their schedule, but they talk about how they're not really maximizing their time and they're not really doing the things they want to do. So quick story, Nick and a couple of his colleagues and I, who I work with, went out to dinner recently, and a couple of us were talking about a book called Die with Zero, which I love, right? And it's a book about how life is not about accumulating money, it's about accumulating experiences. And you should do things with your money to enjoy your life. And the guys who hadn't read it, Nick, you were one of them. So I sent a copy to everyone. And everyone texted me, "Hey, thanks so much for the book. That was really nice." And Nick texted me and said, "Thanks for the book, but my wife said I don't need it. I know how to spend money already," right? And it's kind of funny, but it's great, and I love that story. But, so tell us, a little bit about that, right? Like, we see you sitting on your rocking chair here on the front porch, which is good. I talked to you recently, and it was the day that you were working on the boat, right? And those are all the things that we want to be doing. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like for you. Do you sometimes get too stressed and you're like, "What am I doing? I can't be on the boat. I have to be working." Tell us about that balance.
This is something that I wouldn't say I've struggled with, because it's a really good problem to have, but it's something that you have to be aware of when you have your own business, trying to even have separation, because a lot of the times I sit home. I love being home. And I mentioned to you, Mike, I had gotten my home sub 2, beautiful place. We got, 6 acres here. So we're always out on the quad, the dirt bike. We're always doing something. My problem that I've seen is that once again, I don't leave the house, and I sit on my porch and I do my work. So I've realized that I do need to get out to get out a little bit more. Not once again that being a problem, but it gives you the freedom to work and do whatever you want from wherever you want, because realistically, at this point, I'm really just shot calling. I'm making sure that everyone's doing what they have to do. I'm speaking to, my acquisitions. I have a transaction coordinator / project manager that's dealing with, pushing all these deals through. I have my contractor. It's really just making sure that everyone's doing what they have to do, and you don't have to be sitting in an office. I like to, have the freedom to do whatever I want. Go work from the boat, go work, sit outside and work, and not be tied to, I have to sit in my office from 9 to 5 and do this or do that. But, it does tie back into what I mentioned before, where it becomes, everything gets mixed a little bit, where it's like you're always on, you're always off. It's like, I'm home, am I hanging out with the family? I'm still taking phone calls, I'm half on, half off. 7 p.m. comes, I should be off now, but now I'm still answering emails and phone calls, and then it drags to 8 and 9. And it gets hard without having a set schedule. So that's what's been really important for me lately, is I've been pretty good with shutting my phone off and being intentional about whatever I'm doing. So if I'm going to be hanging out with the family, the phone's off. I'm not taking any work calls from 7 to 9 or whatever it is. If it's during the day, even I'm staring at my lawn, it's kind of long. I have to mow my lawn, which is something that I find peace in. But even that, I'll try and just be like, all right, let me just do this, and then I'll get back, whatever it is. I'll spend an hour out there, come back in, answer my calls, answer my emails, and then, continue to live my life. Because, even with the whole premise, flip your life, it's like you want to be able to control your time and do what makes you happy every day. And as long as you're still getting your stuff done, I think you could just create whatever life you want to live.
So quick thing, Nick said he bought his house sub 2. We're not going to get into that, but if you want to know more about that, listen to the episode with Giselle Rosado, because she talked all about that. Sorry, little plug. But you said about, I thought it was important. It's not about not working. It's about working when and where you want, right? And figuring out that schedule and then doing the things you like to do. What are the things you do? Like, what are things you're doing when you're not working or that you have mixed in with work? I'm sort of like you. I kind of find if I don't try and create this clear divide between work and personal, it's easier for me, right? Like, but what are the things you're doing when you're not working?
So a couple of things I would say I like to do. One, anything with a motor. Like I love going fast. So like cars, dirt bikes, motorcycles, anything with a motor is something that I always love. And my son has already grown a love towards that, which is cool. I love to lift, which is just part of like daily. I feel like, I need to get my lift in the morning before I start my day. Otherwise, like my head's all over the place. I don't feel good. So working out is very important. I love jujitsu, which I haven't been as consistent with lately as I was, which ties into having the business. You go through so many different waves of your life. I feel like I live a different life every month. I say this to my wife all the time. But making sure I make time for those things that I like. And yeah, I would say that I don't really, I call myself old now. I don't party anymore. Yeah. I have the family. So yeah, those are a few things that I like to do.
Your wife didn't make you give up the motorcycles when the kids were born?
So when she first got pregnant, I had a motorcycle back in the day when I was living in Stanford. She was looking for an excuse for me to sell it. So she got pregnant. She made me sell the one bike. This ties into our real estate in Burr from before. I think I was telling you, but I got bought a 2-family. I'll give you a quick rerun on that. 2-family for $310. The guy left a boat. I traded the boat for a bike. So then I had that bike. And to tie into the Burring from before, that property with no work got appraised for $540. They cashed me out at $370. So I made like $40K or something on that. Side note, but that gave me the bike. So then I had the bike and she was pissed about it. And then it was like a little bit of a beater bike. So I rode that for like a month and then I bought a new bike. So she's not happy about that.
Nice. One other thing I want to talk about this, you have, as I said before, I went out to dinner with you and a few other guys, like 5 or 6 of you who are competitors, but also partners and friends, and you do stuff together. Just talk quickly a little bit about that, because it's actually one of the unique things about real estate. I see that a lot, right? Like, yeah, I'm competing with them, but I don't hate them. Sometimes we do deals together. Sometimes they win. And like this real friendship comes about from people who are your competitors during the day.
You know what? It's a funny situation. There's 5 or 6 of us that are all, and we're all between 25 and 35, and we all have our businesses.
Yeah, I was the old man at dinner. I know.
we're all competitors, but we're all friends. It's you know what it is? We realized we were bidding each other up on a lot of these properties, because say it's me and you going after a deal. We know we could pay whatever it is. And we know the other person's on the other side of it, and we're just trying to win the deal. Instead of trying to win it, let's just partner on it. We'll get it at a better price, and everyone wins. So like in situations where maybe a deal is closer to my house, one of the guys might bring me the deal. If I have something out closer, which a lot of them are Orange County, on their side, I might bring it to them and say, hey, let's partner on this one. Or do you know the area better than I do? And it makes it fun. Like I love doing deals with the guys because we get to, sit back and bullshit, and it just makes it less transactional and more fun.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a good part of the lifestyle. Okay, 2 last things. One, for someone starting or relatively new in the business, what's your one most important piece of advice?
Just consistency. And that's with anything, like anything you want to start or do. Like, don't just do it for this week and then give up. Like if you want to get into real estate, dedicate your next year to calling. And if you call for a year straight every day for an hour and you don't get a deal, it's impossible. I physically think it's I was going to say I'll give you $1 million, but I don't have it.
we'll give them your number and you'll train them because they're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
And then the last question I ask everyone, if you were doing it all over again, Is there one thing you do differently?
No, I think I would do the same. I would do the same thing that I did. I think you do everything happens for a reason. Any, mistakes or anything bad that goes on is really just a lesson for you moving forward, as long as you take it that way and you don't make the same mistakes multiple times. So I think the bad things are just important as the good things on the journey of success.
Learn from the mistakes. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, Nick, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, thanks for listening to Flip Your Life, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.